welcome to the Second Tier Podcast. I'm Ryan Dilks, and I'm joined by the Wesley to my Andre Vidigold. It's Justin Peach.
Good day to you, Ryan.
Justin, we were just having a chat before the podcast started, and I usually ban any weather chat here on the podcast because I think it's extremely boring. However, you did make a valid point that autumn has very much announced itself very quickly, hasn't it? And very dramatically.
Yeah, very dramatic. It depends what you deem drama. I know you mentioned the temperature dropping considerably, but it's gone from me being able to dry my sheets outside to leaving them out overnight for them to be now getting absolutely piss wet through because I was banking on good weather, drying them, which is ultimately, it's a disappointing issue. It's an adult thing. The kids won't understand, but this has ruined my day.
Oh, completely understandable. And it's only just got underway, which is the saddest thing. Yeah, I kind of think autumn is... You remember when Nicholas Bentner came on for Arsenal and literally scored straight on from coming on? Do you remember that?
I don't remember Bentner scoring many goals.
So Nicholas Bentner, I think, holds the record for the quickest goal by a substitute. Because if you watch the video, he literally comes onto the pitch, runs on from a corner and doesn't stop running and gets his head on the ball as it's going on. I don't think there'll ever be a goal scored quicker by a substitute, just because I don't see how it could possibly be quicker unless the game gets underway as he literally comes onto the pitch and he just shoots and scores. Anyway, the point I'm making is Nicholas Bentner is autumn in this situation where he's just come on and turned the tide rapidly.
Yeah. I don't really know how to expand on that analogy. It's a great one. It's fantastic. But all I'm doing now is just I'm hyper focusing on Nicholas Bentner and his hopelessness in football, really, which is a bit disrespectful because he was a good player at one point, but he was also really bad towards the end of his career. This has got nothing to do with autumn now. I've sidestepped this conversation. I'm talking about Bentner.
Just having a dig at Nicholas Bentner, which I don't think I ever expected the show to start with. But here we are. Welcome to the number one championship podcast, the Second Tier. Thank you for joining us wherever you are. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, as you're probably aware, it's an international break. So with that being said, we're having a bit of fun on the show today. I've tasked Justin with picking a team of his favourite players and manager currently in the championship. It's not his team of the season so far, not a team of the players who he thinks are the best in the division, just the players he likes the most, whether that be someone who he's been a fan of for many years now or someone he thinks is a rising talent. The twist here is he can only pick one player from each team, so it's not going to be full of Leicester players, for example. We're doing Justin's team today. My team will be released on Sunday. It's just something that I thought Justin could, tie us over for the international break and get, shine some praise on the players we truly appreciate at this level.
Yeah, give you a warm, cosy feeling in your tummy. Now autumn's drawing in. You need to be warm. Why not sift through this praise and get all fuzzy inside when you need to? It's a perfect time to be doing this.
It's basically the hot chocolate. We are the hot chocolate in this situation, and we are comforting you in the cold winter months. Let us be inside you. Justin, what's the first player?
Jesus Christ. The first player I've picked is Rotherham United's Victor Johansson.
In goal, we should say. We're going through a formation here. We're not just Garth Crooks in this and just picking players all over the place. We've got an actual team set up here. So goalkeeper Victor Johansson of Rotherham. Why have you got him, Justin?
I'd put him Big Vic as my number 9, but okay, I'm gonna have to be a bit of a rejig here. But I've gone with the big Swede because he's got a fantastic beard for starters. But I genuinely don't think there are more consistent goalkeepers in the EFL than him, and I truly do think he's destined for much bigger things than Championship football. I think he's mid-20s now, he's 25, and I think he's got the ability to really, really carry on his development, because since breaking in at the end of the 2021 season, he's really caught my eye, and he's kept Rotherham in the Championship, shall we say? I think that's fair to say. He's a big case last season for points saved in terms of what saves he's been making. But yeah, since he came in during that 2021 season when Millers were fighting against the tide of postponed games in the Championship, he's really, really kicked on. And last season, Rotherham. He's really, really kicked on. And last season we rated him as the best goalkeeper in the division. And when we're talking about consistency, I don't think there are any goalkeeper in the Championship making saves as consistently as him to keep a team in the division. He is just outstanding.
Two things I'll take issue with on you there. First, you mentioned that he's got a great beard, which is strange because you always criticise my beard, and I think his beard and mine are pretty much the same. Both got a hint of ginger in them. No. Okay, then. And the second thing I'd take issue with is you reckon he's going to keep going and going. Did you say to the top? Is that what you said?
Yeah, it depends what your version of the top is.
Well, I'm not saying the Premier League in this case.
Okay, the Premier League. Yeah, I'm not going to say he's not going to win the World Cup with Sweden. Well, we might do, but you never know.
The point I wanted to pick you up on there is I'm not sure he will play in the Premier League. And I think the reason for that is because I fully accept brilliant shot stopper. I'd probably even go as far to say probably the best shot stopper in the division, just purely based on that. I think the thing that's holding him back as a goalkeeper to get to the top level is his ability with his feet, because he's not exactly your modern day goalkeeper where you could give the ball to him and it can start an attack, is he?
Well, it's a fair argument, but I think the thing you've got to mention here is he's not played for a team where he's had to have those demands with the ball at his feet.
Definitely not at Rotherham.
Definitely not at Rotherham. They've been very direct under Paul Warne and now Matt Taylor, and I think that's part of the way of trying to survive in the Championship. But I think if he gets a move to a team who varies their game up a little bit, and he does have that challenge, then maybe he can improve. Maybe he can make that step. So I don't think we'll see it until we see it, if that makes sense. So I think that next move for him, whether he stays at Rotherham or whether he gets a move to a team who are a little bit more progressive or a team that are very progressive, we're not going to see that. But I'm confident in his ability to adapt, because he's gone from strength to strength to strength in the last few years, and I'm not going to rule him out. Carry on doing that.
Maybe he will at some point play in the Premier League, because not every team likes their goalkeeper to play out from the back. It's not a requirement that a lot of teams look for. I just remember a good example is Bartosz Białkowski. I remember talking to an agent about him, and they were saying shot stopping just incredible, but the thing that's holding him back from playing at the top level is his ability with his feet, because he wasn't very good at it. And I feel like Vichy Johansson may be falling to a similar fate. But look, I can see being a top Championship keeper for many years, I'm sure of that. Who's your right back, Justin Peach?
I've gone with Cyrus Christie of Hull City. Cyrus the Virus for those 90s action film lovers. Bit of a reference there.
I have no idea what you're talking
about. Do you not?
About. No.
Have you never seen Con Air?
No.
Okay, right. This is again, it's another debate. Nicolas Cage film. Ryan, watch it. Oh my God, it's great. It's great. It's always on ITV on a Saturday night.
Please, Justin.
Anyway, moving on to Cyrus Christie. He's an underappreciated, undervalued, prolific chance creator for me. And I don't think, I fully appreciate him. It took him for him to leave Derby for me to truly love and understand his game and appreciate him. Form-wise, he's not been quite at it this season, so there'll be some recency bias feedback from people, I imagine. But I'm sure he's going to pick up in years. Not in years, sorry. He's been picking up in years gone by. And he's been so consistent in the teams that he's been playing in. I always feel like he's got a point to prove, which is perhaps unfair to him. But he's efficient in his dribbling, his crossing is consistent, and his link-up play and timing of his runs is very intelligent as well. He's the perfect right wing-back to have in your team, because not only has he got the experience now, but also he's going to create chances, and he's going to get you off your feet in a surprising way at times, because you don't expect a fullback to be as efficient as him at dribbling. So, yeah, I've gone with Cyrus Christie. I do really, really enjoy his performances.
Yeah, I remember early on in his career there was a lot of complaints from people about him defensively, but I think that's something that he's managed to refine as he's got older, and his consistency as well is another thing which I think has just got better as the years have gone by. Look, at the end of the day, he's played for some top sides at this level, hasn't he? And I think he's been promoted multiple times. So you're only going to do that if you're a very good right back at this level. And that's why it surprised me that when Hull signed him, he was on a free, wasn't he? And he wasn't until quite late in the summer, maybe even in the autumn, when he actually got picked up, which you'd have thought he'd have more interest around him, considering what he's done at the games. So, yeah, I'm not going to disagree with you on that just now. I think Cyrus Christie is a very solid right back at this level nowadays. Who is your first centre-back?
I've gone with Matty Pearson of Huddersfield Town. Now, the reason why I've gone with him is because I thoroughly enjoy centre-halves who will just head anything, literally anything. And I'm talking literally anything. I think Matty Pearson gives off the vibe of wanting to head a bus stop if a bus is late, for example. He shouldered a heavy burden when he came back from injury last season and scored several really important goals as well. He got 5 in 17, which is quite prolific. If you've got a striker you sign for big money who gets 5 in 17 who's just settling, you think it's a decent return coming in January, for example. But Matty Pearson scored 5 in 17. Again, it's really good for a centre-half, and mostly, if not all, from set pieces. And it's hard to get players with that innate desire to get on the end of crosses into the box. I think it's so difficult. But he was pivotal. He was pivotal at Huddersfield in his first season, getting him into the playoffs. His injury towards the end of that campaign was really felt. And of course, he was important last season. So he's played a significant role in 2 significant moments for Huddersfield in the last 2 years. And although, again, form-wise, he's not been at his best this season, I'm sure he will get to that. He'll get to that at some point.
Yeah, a very Brexit selection by you, having Matty Pearson at centre-half. I've got a theory, Justin, that actually, if you were a football manager, you would probably going down kind of the Gary Rowett style of play route, because I tend to realise that your favourite players are very much, specialising in the direct route of football, and Matty Pearson, I think, is a perfect example of that.
Well, I grew up watching Steve Howard, Rob Hulse. These are players who you just get it to the head, or Derby, of course, just get it to the head, and I think that's really had an impact on me. Not in the best way. Don't get me wrong, if Pep Guardiola took over at Derby, I will enjoy the football.
Fuming. But, get it forward!
Absolutely. But you are right. If I was a manager, I would 100% play the Brexit way, because I think it ruffles feathers, it pisses people off, and it gets results, to be honest with you. As Gareth Rowett, up until this season, was finding out. But anyway, Matty Pearson heads and kicks everything, and you need that in your defence. You need that, and I love that.
There was a small period where you were a Gareth Ainsworth apologist, and now it all makes sense, because actually Gareth Ainsworth ball is your ideal brand of football. You are the kind of person who,
under the collar.
Get it forward and just watch the chaos happen. Find the corridor of uncertainty, and things will happen. That's Justin Peach's rule of thumb. Who is your other centre-back, Justin?
Got a bit more poise here. Got Dan Ballard of Sunderland. I feel like he's got that perfect mix of bit Brexit, bit composed at the back. I can't believe I'm using Brexit as a term to describe defenders, but I'm sure people get what we mean. But for me, he can defend, he can pass, and he's now picked up a scoring touch this season, which again, describing Matty Pearson, I do like that in a defender. I'll stand by the notion as well that if Dan Ballard was fit for the entirety of last season, Sunderland would have comfortably finished in the top 6. Of course, they took it to the last day. And I just think having a defender of his quality would have made a huge difference in those games where they were quite edgy. But he's such a steady, reliable operator, and he's still only 24, and he's been so consistent since his loan move to Millwall in the 21-22 season, and he barely puts a foot wrong. I think the only thing you can hold against him really is his injury record. It's not the best. But again, if he's just 24, you expect him to get over that. And I'm sure if he continues to grow, stays fit, he will be, one way or another, he'll be a Premier League player by the end of this season.
I think he's a top player, Dan Ballard. I saw someone describe him the other day. I think it was a newspaper report, call him a no-nonsense defender, which I just think is just bollocks.
Bit lazy.
It's not really the case at all. Yeah, he's quite a big lad, but he's great with the ball at his feet, as you have to be in this Sunderland team. I just think he's a quality all-round defender, still only 24, so he's got room to grow as well. I think it was a bargain when Sunderland signed him last summer, and I'm surprised there wasn't more interest in him. When I say last summer, I mean summer last year. I'm still in 2023 mode. I mean, it still is 2023. You get my point. But yeah, he's a top defender. I can see him getting... Well, I think he's already had quite a bit of interest from Premier League clubs. I think Burnley have been linked with him quite recently. Wouldn't surprise me if he is playing in the Premier League next season, whether that's with Sunderland or not. Only time will tell. But yeah, a really, really good player is Dan Ballard. Your left back, Justin, something I can definitely get on board with.
Best left back in the division at the moment, Leif Davis of Ipswich Town, chance creator, just unreal left foot, absolutely unreal. Obviously, I think had to take the drop down to League One to really get rolling as a player, but he already has 5 assists this season, and he's a prolific creator, and that's not going to stop. He's averaging 3.5 key passes per game, which makes him the second most prolific chance creator in the division behind Gabriel Sara. Gabriel Sara is a creative midfielder. Leif Davis is a left back. Just to emphasise how efficient he is with his crossing and ability to get the balls in the right areas. Of course, he's very proficient at his set pieces. Defensively, his numbers are steady, comfortably competent, I would say. But he's a huge asset in this Kieran McKenna team. But yeah, going back to those set pieces, I think it's perhaps undervalued in football having a player who can consistently do well and put the ball in the good area. I'm not talking about someone who can just whip a ball in. I'm talking about someone who can whip a ball in and it actually be dangerous with their crosses. Sorba Thomas 2 years ago at Huddersfield springs to mind. Score a lot of goals, create a lot of chances that way. As an opposing goalkeeper and defender, you shit it every time when that ball's coming in because it's just on the money, and Leif Davis is that man.
This is why Justin's such a Brexit coach, ladies and gentlemen. Set pieces are the most important part of football. I will echo this one, Justin. Leif Davis is an unbelievable left back. Since the start of last season, he's managed 19 assists from left back. That is just unbelievable. Admittedly, a lot of them are from set pieces, but let's not take it away from him because that left foot is a weapon. He could place it on a mosquito's nipple. He is that accurate with a dead ball. 35 chances created this season, the second most in the league, only 23 as well. The thing is, for me, he was obviously at Leeds before and had a brief loan spell at Bournemouth. Didn't really get a look in at either of those two places, and I was left here wondering whether he's actually that good. And now he's possibly the best left back in the league. So that answers that question, doesn't it? The only annoying thing about him for me is when I have to spell his name, I always get his first name wrong. It's the E and the I. I get them the wrong way around every single bloody time.
Oh, I thought you might have been spelling it literally Leaf, which would have been
no. It's just in my head. I doubt myself every time. I'm like, is it the I or the E? Is it EI? I think it's I after E, except after C. I think that's the rule. Yeah,
it's okay. We can work on it post production. We can get you through this.
You're not the one who's having to tweet about him every other day because he's so bloody good, and I'm just like paranoid about getting it wrong, so I have to Google his name every fucking time. Who's your first centre mid, Justin?
Centre mid. I've gone with Ben Chief of Coventry City.
Oh
yes, he brings out the ooh in you, doesn't he? He's such a player. He can make you feel like, as I imagine, as an opposition midfielder, like there are two or three of them. He'll swarm on you like a Parisian bedbug. He will get in on you and just bite you. Maybe
topical. I like it.
Yeah, I love that. He mops up, sweeps up, and he puts away. He's the ultimate ball-winning midfielder with that extra little bit of quality you need to drive your team up the pitch. Annoyingly, this season he's been out since the start of September. I guess whose results have dipped potentially as a result of that. I'm not going to speculate, but Coventry's form hasn't been great since he's not been in the team. And it's not a surprise. He averages 4 tackles per game this season, just under 2 interceptions as well. Plays with intelligence and poise, with a bit of aggression. Very difficult to get those type of midfielders. And I think every team in the country needs a midfielder like Ben Chief because they do everything and they do it so well.
But the problem is, Justin, they're so very hard to find, aren't they?
Exactly.
Because finding a player who wins the ball back as well as him, but is then also be able to basically be a playmaker at the same time, those players do not grow on trees. So when you've got one like him, he really is a gem, isn't he? Justin, let's take a quick break. After that, we'll go through the second half of your Dream 11. Welcome back to the Second Tier podcast. This is Justin Peach's Dream 11, made up of his favourite players in the Championship. The only issue is he can't pick more than one player from the same team. So far, he's done very well in that regard. But let's find out who his other centre midfielder is, Justin. Who the hell is it?
I've gone with Matt Grimes of Swansea City. When we talk about underrated players, Matt Grimes is up there. We always talk about Ollie Norwood and as an underrated midfielder, to the extent where he's probably not underrated. But the next person in that position who just doesn't get much of a mention at all, and unfairly so, is Matt Grimes. I think he's, in terms of consistency, he's probably been a top 10 performer in the Championship, just in terms of his ability to just put out 7, 8 out of 10 performances every single week. And in my head, he's still 23, forever 23, but he's 28. He's in his peak years, and it's showing. And this man has played for Graham Potter, Steve Cooper, Russell Martin, and now Michael Duff. And guess what? He's excelled in every single team. Just different styles of play, contrasting styles of play. And he's been the centre of each of those teams. You've got to be a good player to do that. And he is, and to say, well, he's not a prolific scorer, he's not a prolific assister, but he sets the tempo of the team perfectly, and he is the anchor the team needs, the Pirlo from Devon, if you like. And I go back to the assist thing. He does create chances. He does get the ball into dangerous areas for opposition to worry, to be hurt. He's such a good player, and again, I've not valued him enough in the Championship, and a lot of years have gone by wasted not valuing him, in my opinion.
Yeah, very much a football purists player, isn't he? Matt Grimes. He's one that he definitely goes underappreciated, but if you actually just keep your eye on him for a game, you can really see how much he influences this Swansea team. This won't be very popular with Swansea fans, but I worry that his potential as a player may not be fully met if he doesn't leave the Swansea City Stadium. Or whatever it's called now. He gets linked with a move away pretty much every summer, doesn't he? But just nothing ever seems to be solid, nothing ever seems to materialise, when actually he probably could be playing in the Premier League, really, couldn't he? Because he is just that good, but here he is still playing for Swansea after all these years, and he may not leave at this point. Maybe he will just stay at Swansea for the rest of his career. It's
an interesting trade-off. He can either be an okay player in the Premier League, for example, or he can be an excellent player at Swansea City. And I think what he's doing at Swansea, I think, is he's remarkable, and I think you can appreciate him more playing those games for Swansea. Weirdly, appreciate him more for Swansea in the Championship than you probably could playing in the Premier League, because you'd probably get lost amongst the noise. But actually, I think he's getting more of it now, playing in the Championship with Swansea. Let's go to your attacking midfielder, Justin. I think this one was always going to be included in your team, Monty. He was. Kieran Dewsbury-Hall of Leicester City, the man who sounds like a National Trust site but plays like a heavy metal concert venue. I don't know what that means, but it sounded really fucking cool when I wrote it down. Do you know what else is fucking cool? Kieran Dewsbury-Hall. It looks like a character from Lost Boys. Have you seen it? It's another film reference. Have you seen Lost Boys? Is that the one where the bloke is there with the glass bottles on his hands and he's going, "Warriors, come out"? No, that's Warriors. Oh, okay, fair enough then. No, in answer to your question, no, I haven't. This is criminal, absolutely criminal. There will be a thorough review after this, because there's two films you should have seen. Anyway, he looks like a character from the Lost Boys. Anyway, I've loved him since he came into the Championship for Luton on loan. Speaking to him, interviewing, speaking to him on a personal level, he's incredibly humble, and he came across as very desperate to grow. And of course, I'm talking about an interview from 2 years ago. But I'm certain the standards that he was setting himself under Nathan Jones in that loan spell at Kenilworth Road would stay the same for him. And I think he's showing that this season. He's so dangerous in the box. He's unselfish, and he's adding goals to his game this year. He's got 8 goal contributions already this season with 10 games in. For a midfielder in a patient possession-based play team, it just shows he's getting in the right areas. He's just too good for this level, and I think if he can carry on this form into the Premier League next season, he's going to be in the conversation for an England call-up. I 100% agree with that, Justin. I think I was going on a big rant on social media the other day about how, I mean, it wasn't that big a rant, but my point was that England don't seem to give much of a look into Championship players when other countries do. I mean, Argentina have just called up Carlos Alcaraz of Southampton, whereas England seem to ignore their second division, when really Kieran Dewsbury-Hall, the form that he's been showing means that he shouldn't be too far away from the England squad. I know it's quite a competitive area in midfield, but my point still remains. I think he should be in the Championship anyway. He should be playing in the Premier League. He should be in the top half of the Premier League for my money, just because I think he's that damn good. I think he wasn't too far behind James Maddison in terms of chances created last season, yet one's playing at Spurs, the other one is in the Championship. But, that's Leicester's game, managing to keep hold of someone like him. And he's an unbelievable player. I think it was no surprise to me that Liverpool were being linked with him in the summer. I'm not sure how solid those reports were, but it just didn't surprise me at all, because he is that good. Still really, really young as well. I think he's got such a big future ahead of him, and I'm not sure
what kind of impact dropping down to the Championship for a season will have on his career. I mean, Jack Grealish didn't seem to be harmed too much by it, but I think it wouldn't be a surprise to me if Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall was playing at the very top level at some point, just because I think he's that damn good.
No, I agree. I think it dropping down to the Championship can act as a springboard. You mentioned Jack Grealish, and I think that's a perfect example because he was stalling at Aston Villa in the Premier League, and I think it took an arm around his shoulder and dropped down to the second tier to really excel. And I think Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall is experiencing that now, in that he's got a license to thrive at Leicester, and he's showing it, and he's taking advantage of it. And teams are on the other end of it, and that's good for us because we get to ooze over him because he's such a good player. We're not going to see him after this season because he's just going to go very, very high up in football. Yeah,
we can guarantee that, can't we? Let's go to your right winger, Justin. I was looking through your team and thought, yeah, this is all fine and good, and then I saw this player and just shook my head.
You're a disgrace. You're a disgrace. Right wing, I've gone with Tom Ince of Watford. If anyone wants to come after me, come after me. I will protect my Thomas until the day I die, or at least until he retires.
Sorry,
I don't know.
Have you just been transformed into Paul Ince, protecting my Thomas?
I feel like Paul Ince in this scenario. Just call me governor. Look, his record at this level is incredible, and the way he plays, I love watching him. I love watching him. I get so excited when I see a highlight of him dipping his shoulder, and I still think defenders somehow are falling for that exaggerated dip of the shoulder. And the reason why I think people are so against him is because they refuse to admit how good he is. I think people are so stubborn on this opinion of Tom Ince, and I understand Stoke fans have been through it. You know, he had his first season goal-wise, it was a very good return, but he was performing in an underperforming team. No player in that team was any good at all or consistently enough. So that answers that. But I just think he's had a positive impact in some way at every club he's had. Speaking to Huddersfield fans, they rated him very highly because of his work rate. Derby fans, he carried the team for 2 years. Blackpool, he carried the team for a couple of years as well. He's 11th in the all-time top scorer list with 92 goals in 370 points, 374 appearances. He's scored more than Cameron Jerome, Charlie Austin, Kevin Phillips, Chris Wood. Put some respect on the man's name.
How good do you think he is right now?
I think he's as good as Watford are at the moment.
How good do you think he was at his peak?
I think he was probably top 5 in the Championship at the very least. That's me being quite conservative with my opinion.
That's being very pragmatic. It seems like you're kind of rolling back on yourself a bit.
No, I'm not. Okay, I will. In his peak at Derby, having viewed it, he was a one-man wrecking ball. That I think it's a 17-18 season, or 16-17 season actually, when he got the move before he got to move to Huddersfield. Derby would have been in the bottom 6 had it not been for his contribution. Goal-wise, he carried the team, no question. And I think for me at that point, he was probably one of the best in the league, if not the best attacker in the league.
Better question for you, Justin. How many appearances do you think he should have made in the Premier League at his peak?
I think he should have made... I'm not going to put a number on it, but he should have been playing Premier League football. I think him going to Crystal Palace under Tony Pulis really shafted him, because that is not a team you go to on loan to excel. And then Steve Bruce at Hull City, again, not a team you go to excel as a creative winger who needs to learn a little bit more about his game.
Put a number on it. How many appearances? Because people will be saying the reason Tom Ince has scored so many goals at Championship level is because he's played so many games at Championship level. Mm-hmm. So how many games do you think he should have played in the Premier League?
I would say 2 full seasons as a regular, so up to 70. And then
do you think that would have been possible without a team getting relegated?
Well, what do you mean possible without a team getting relegated?
Without that team that he started in regularly getting relegated because they're playing Tom Ince for 2 full seasons?
No, they would have been in the Champions League.
My God. That was a joke. That was a joke, ladies and gentlemen. I can tell when Justin Peter's joking most of the time. But so you're telling me Tom Ince should have had 2 full seasons in the Premier League at least, should he?
At the very least, yeah. If I was if I was a football manager playing my rigid Brexit lump it forward football, I need a bit of zest, a bit of quality. And I'm not going to be a manager of a team with a huge budget, and I would have taken a chance on Tom Ince. And I think Tom Ince would have repaid that because, as I say, he's my Thomas.
I've got nothing more to add, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go to your striker, Justin. Who have you got there?
I've gone with Tommy Conway, Bristol City. I'm so hopeful of what he can do. I rate him incredibly highly, maybe too highly, because I expect an incredible career out of this guy. And that might be unfair, laying that onto him. Not that my opinion matters too much in the world of football, but the reason why I rate him so highly and so much is, despite not making over 100 career appearances yet, I just think goal scoring comes so natural to him. He's so instinctive, And if you got some, if you throw in the recency bias, the goals that he scored against Rotherham just a couple of weeks ago, one of them was a screamer, fantastic goal coming off the bench. The other was a deft, instinctive flick into the far corner in the last minute. And if he stays fit between now and the end of the season, I think he can be the difference between Bristol City being in the conversation for a top 6 push towards the end of the campaign. He's a goal scorer that makes a difference. He's born to score goals, and as I say, he's just 21, and he's already got that maturity about him. I think he's got the quality to do a hell of a lot at this level.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that, Justin. I really rate Tommy Conway very highly. I think, considering the goal tally he managed to get last season, then he could get quite a big goal tally this season. Injuries have held him back so far this season, but now that he's seemingly fit again, I could see him getting quite a lot of goals because he's just a brilliant finisher, manages to create his own goals. He reminds me, he manages to create his own chances, what I mean, because of his dribbling. He reminds me a bit of a young Callum Wilson, the way that he's able to take on players. He's got a bit of pace about him, but he's ultimately got that finishing touch, which, is quite hard to find in players, particularly someone as young as him, because he's got that composure as well. I think he's a really top striker and could be playing at a very high level at some point, considering what he's done so far at such a young age. Let's go to your left winger, Justin. This is another young player who we both rate very highly.
Yeah, I've gone with Morgan Whittaker of Plymouth Argyle, and I think he's been quite unlucky in his career so far. I go back to him coming through at Derby. Philip Cocu liked what he saw from him, gave him some game time. And I thought I saw some glimpses of quality, but physically looked underdeveloped. I think he's been mismanaged by both Wayne Rooney and Russell Martin before really finding a home at Plymouth. And you've only got to look at his numbers over the past 18 months and look at judge how good he's been. He had 16 goal contributions in 25 League One games last season. Bit of a coming of age campaign for him. I mean, he's carried that confidence into this season despite some weird goings on. But at Swansea post January, didn't get a move to Rangers, etc. Just a strange scenario. But he's still learning, and he's got the confidence and elegance, I think, to again really really harm opposition teams. And the way he runs at players, the way he links up play, he's got a great on-field relationship with Ballymumba. He's got so much composure as well. I think they're all significant attributes for a player who's just 22 years old, or 21, 22 years old, and he's already got 4 goals and 3 assists this season. I think that record so far is indicative of those qualities that he's got. I just don't think there are too many young players who have got a higher ceiling than him at the moment, or have a higher quality than him at the moment at that point in his career.
It's a lot of praise, Justin. A lot of praise, but you know what? I think it's worth it because what I've seen of him so far has just been extremely promising. I mean, last season what he did in League One was extremely promising, and I said it before, if he was a permanent Plymouth player last season, then he'd be getting interest from so many different Championship sides. But because he was on loan from Swansea and didn't play pretty much for the second half of last season, that meant that Plymouth were able to get him for an absolute snip at £1 million, which is still daylight robbery even now. So Plymouth have had Swansea's pants down in that regard. We've said that so many times over the past few weeks, but it still bears repeating, doesn't it? Because he's just such a good player, and his ceiling is really high. I think you're quite right. At Derby and at Swansea, he has not really had the rub of the green there. Whether that's been down to mismanagement or not, I'm not really too sure. But at Plymouth now, he's got somewhere where he's truly appreciated, and that goes a really long way with players. And if if this is anything to go by, then maybe he should stick around at Plymouth for a lot longer than just this season or the next season, and just keep playing his best football, because he's so important to Plymouth, because they're quite leaky at the back at the moment. His goals, and other players chipping in with goals as well, is basically what's going to keep him up this season. And finally, Justin, your manager, who is managing this mismatch of your favourite players in the Championship?
I've gone with Daniel Farke, the Leeds United manager. I think he's on his way to becoming a Championship GOAT in terms of managerial achievements at this level. But I think potentially got the ability to see it this season. You've mentioned his inability in the past to convince you in other leagues, which is fair. His Premier League and Bundesliga records aren't great, but neither was Neil Warnock's. Neil Warnock didn't have a great Premier League record, doesn't have any Bundesliga records. That point still stands, by the way. He made his name, Farke, that is... Neil Warnock, he made his name as a manager who just knew the formula of getting out of the Championship. And dare I say, Farke is similar, but his teams have a little bit more style about them. His teams press, they intelligently cut sides open, they make executing runs off the ball, and he's shown that he's got a very deft hand at developing youth. And you only need to look at the likes of Jamal Lewis, Ben Godfrey, James Madison, Josh Murphy. They made Norwich a lot of money in sales under his tutelage, and we're seeing Archie Gray develop at the moment, amongst more. He's such a good manager, and I think you gave him too much disrespect in the summer coming into Leeds, which unfortunately I think you are being made to pay for that.
Well, when Daniel Farke came in, my concerns were, first of all, the absolute mess which was happening at Leeds with players going out the exit door just every hour, basically. And I thought that would make it a bit of a tricky situation for him to deal with, but hats off to him. He has done remarkably well in dealing with that situation and kind of just calming things down. My other concern was that when he was at Norwich, it took a full season for them to actually get going. And I was worried that it would take a bit of time for that to happen at Leeds. But look, Leeds have started really, really well. You were saying he's on his way to being a Championship GOAT. I think he already is a Championship GOAT, because 2 promotions out of 3 seasons already is just a remarkable record. And who's to say that 3 promotions out of 4 is not going to happen? It's definitely on the table, isn't it? My concern with him is long term, where if he does get Leeds promoted, how will they do in the Premier League under Daniel Farke? Because, he's had 2 cracks at the Premier League now, and it's gone terribly both times. So maybe that will still be the case. But look, his remit this season was purely to get Leeds out of the Championship, and at the moment, I think they are not on course to doing that, but they're certainly on the right track. Not everyone can have a start as good as Leicester and Ipswich have, which has just been absolutely ridiculous. But ultimately, I think Daniel Farke is doing much better than I expected. Will they do very well in the Premier League? I don't really know.
It's not our problem, Ryan. We're not the top tier podcast. We're the second tier podcast. We don't have to worry about that. We only have to revel in what he's doing now. And as I say, he's cooking up something very nice at Leeds. Yes, it was a slow start. You mentioned a good start. I think the August results showed that it was a disruptive summer, but he's recovered that, and form is picking up, and I think they can only go from strength to strength, Leeds, and Daniel Farke is at the centre of that. Yeah.
And my point I was making earlier in the summer was that I think it's not as much of a long-term appointment as, Maresca and at Leicester and Martin at Southampton. I think my point still stands on that, because Maresca, look how he's doing. I think the future's very bright for Leicester with him in charge. And obviously Russell Martin's had a bit of a sticky start at Southampton, but ultimately he's not really had a crack at the Premier League and seems to be learning more and more as the weeks go by. Whereas Farke, I just have doubts over his ability at the top level, which maybe he'll prove me wrong next season if Leeds are in the Premier League. But I need to see it before I believe it, I think.
Can't end on that note, Ryan. He will be a success. Farke you. Let's go.
I'm not sure what you're basing that on, but nonetheless, let's move on to this.
Scott High or Ryan Lowe? best. It's fucking shit, mate.
Yes, it's time for Scott High or Ryan Low. This is the game where we have to rank 4 things from highest to lowest. It's as simple as that. There's 3 questions. This week, Justin is providing the questions to me. So what have you got for me, Justin Peach, you bastard?
Bit of everything in this one. First question is, can you place in order the teams that Tom Ince has scored the most goals against?
Topical. Go on then.
Yes. Wolves, Sheffield Wednesday, Bristol City, Derby.
Wolves? Tom Ince?
Scored against, yeah.
Oh, scored against? I thought you said scored for.
Well, he's not played for Sheffield Wednesday or Bristol City, so...
Well, I was going to say.
Get the cogs turning, come
on. Well, I have absolutely no clue.
No.
Because I don't pay attention to who he scores against.
I do. I've got it on the wall. I've scratched into the wall each goal he scored. I know.
This is... I'm never getting this in a million years. Wolves, Wednesday, Bristol City, and who's the other one?
Derby.
I'll go Derby top, then Wolves, then Bristol City, then Wednesday.
You got one right.
I'm not bloody surprised because I don't have a clue.
You've got to look at who's been in the Championship longest. Sheffield Wednesday were bottom. He scored 1 against them.
Okay.
Wolves were next. He scored 4 against them. He scored 5 against Derby. They're next. And he scored 8 against Bristol City.
Wow.
The Purge.
Yeah. Bristol City are his bogey side, or opposite of a bogey side.
They are. They are.
The mucus
he is
side.
their bogey player. Yeah. That's a hard one to
Something
explain.
like that. Anyway, what's the next one? Just
which England defender has scored the most goals
for England?
For England.
Okay.
You've got Phil Neville, John Terry, Luke Shaw, and Kyle Walker.
Okay. Well, I can tell you, first of all, that I think Kyle Walker scored his first England goal in the last international break, I think. Phil Neville surely hasn't scored for England. I'm not too privy to Phil Neville's England career because I think it was mostly before I was... Before I was 15, so I can't remember much of England around that time. So I'm not sure Fizzer has got many goals to his name. John Terry scored a few. Luke Shaw, of course, scored England's last goal in a major final, didn't he?
Did he?
Yeah. But I can't remember too many other goals, but I think he's probably got more than Walker. So I'd go, surely Terry's top. Shaw, Walker, Neville.
You've actually surprised me because you've nailed that.
Yeah. That just seemed to make logical sense.
I didn't realise Kyle Walker scored his first goal for England in their last international break. I thought he was at least 2 or 3. Phil Neville, quite rightly, hasn't scored a goal for England. I didn't realise he played for England. John Terry's, of course, the last record holder before Harry Maguire took over. And Luke Shaw's got 3, which, again, just passed me by.
How many's Terry got?
6.
6? I thought he might have even more than that because I just remember him scoring quite a few goals for England at one point. But yeah, that makes sense. Good that I've got 1 on the nose. And finally, Justin, what's the last Scott High or Ryan Low?
Believe it or not, I put all the effort into the podcast, this episode, put it into this question. So
good.
You need to tell me or rank the order of the longest running soap actors. You've got Gail Platt,
okay.
Alf Stewart of Home and Away, Phil Mitchell, and Ian Beale.
Okay. Right, so I've never watched Home and Away, so I don't have a clue there. Mitchell, who is the Home and Away guy?
Alf Stewart. He's quite an old dude. People quote him quite often.
Do they?
Yeah, I don't know the quotes though. I think I'm just making it up in my head just to try and get in your head. Yeah.
Beale, Mitchell, Stewart, Platt. So I don't think Phil Mitchell's been around that long in comparison to the others. Ian Beale's been in there since the start of EastEnders, I think. Gail Platt's been on Corrie for a while, though. I don't even know where to start with Stewart. I can't even remember last time Home and Away was on telly, or how long it was even on for. So with that being said, I'll have a stab in the dark at Phil Mitchell last, Alf Stewart second last, then Platt or Beale. I'll go Gail Platt, Luka Modric, and Mick Beale's brother, top.
so close.
Am I?
That is so close. It's just Beale and Platt.
Is it?
It's just Beale and Platt. You got the one go around. Gail Platt's been on Coro for 49 years.
Yeah, I knew she's been there for a long time. But Beale's been on EastEnders since the start, I think. But EastEnders hasn't been going as long as you think it has.
Beale's been on EastEnders for 36 years. Alf Stewart was on Home and Away for 35 years. And Phil Mitchell's only been on EastEnders for 31 years.
Yeah, I knew that's still quite long, but I know he wasn't as long as the other ones. Is Home and Away Australian?
Yes.
Yeah. Doesn't mean anything to me, to be quite honest. But
you've been to Australia a few times, have you?
That doesn't mean
dabbled.
anything.
Could have dabbled.
On that note, ladies and gentlemen, let's end the podcast there, shall we? This has been the Second Tier podcast, and this has been Justin Peach's Dream 11, made up of his favourite players from the Championship, but he's only allowed to pick one player from each side. My Dream 11 will be released on Sunday, so you got that to look forward to and keep you tied over for the international break. So we look forward to speaking to you again on Sunday. As always, thank you for listening. If you could leave us a 5-star review on whichever podcast platform you listen to us on, that will be a big deal for us, because it goes a long way to helping us grow as a podcast and will mean an awful lot for us. So thank you if you will take the time to do that. Only takes a minute. But this has been the Second Tier podcast. I have been Ryan Dilks.
I have been Justin Peach.
And a big thank you for listening.